Just when fans thought they'd heard every possible story, LB sure went live and dropped a shocking bombshell that no one saw coming. In a deeply emotional moment, he revealed the real reason behind D'Angelo's sudden disappearance, and what he said left fans completely stunned. Was this betrayal, an industry cover-up, or something even darker? Stay with me, because what LB sure revealed during that live stream turns everything we believed about D'Angelo's downfall upside down. And trust me, the truth is far more twisted than anyone could have ever imagined. If you've been following the shocking updates about the R&B legend D'Angelo, then you already know something about his sudden silence and strange disappearance has never quite made sense. For years, people have been asking the same question. What really happened to the man whose voice defined an entire era of soul music? But when LB sure recently went live, his words sent shockwaves through the entire music industry. He didn't just speak as another artist, he spoke as someone who truly knew D'Angelo, someone who'd witnessed firsthand what was happening behind the curtains. In this video, we're going deep into that live session, breaking down every statement, every hidden clue, and the exact reason LB sure claims D'Angelo was forced into the shadows. You won't believe the names that come up or the secrets that were allegedly kept from the public for so many years. We'll uncover what LB sure actually said, how fans reacted, and the surprising links between D'Angelo's personal struggles, the pressure of the music industry, and the dark truths that may have led to his fall. So don't go anywhere, because this isn't your typical celebrity gossip. This could be one of the most revealing moments in R&B history. By the end of this video, you'll understand why so many believe LB sure may have risked everything just to finally speak the truth. But before we dive into the full story, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and drop a comment below. Let's talk about what really happened the night LB sure decided to expose everything. Before we uncover exactly what he revealed, we need to rewind to where it all started the moment D'Angelo became more than just a singer. He became a symbol. In the mid to late 90s, D'Angelo wasn't simply topping the charts, he was redefining the sound of R&B. His voice carried Marvin Gaye's spirit, Prince's smoothness, and the pure soul authenticity that had been missing from the mainstream for so long. With his debut album Brown Sugar, he didn't just earn fans, he earned respect. Critics hailed him as the future of R&B. Women adored him. Men respected his artistry. He had all the voice, the vision, and the vulnerability. But behind that smooth sound and confident image was a man who felt deeply uneasy about what fame was shaping him into. The label wanted a sex symbol. The media craved controversy, and fans expected perfection. Every move he made was under a microscope. Every lyric was pulled apart. Every flaw was amplified. Then came Voodoo, the album that turned him into an icon and also marked the beginning of his downfall. The now legendary video for Untitled How Does It Feel made D'Angelo a global sensation. But according to those close to him, it also trapped him. Overnight, he wasn't just celebrated for his voice anymore, he was being defined by his body.
His image, his sensuality, and that sudden shift reportedly tore him apart from the inside. Those close to D'Angelo say the constant sexualization and relentless pressure to maintain that crafted image crushed his spirit. He wanted to make music, not be objectified, but the industry machine didn't care. All they saw were dollar signs. And that's exactly where the spiral began. Behind the scenes, D'Angelo slowly started pulling away from public appearances. He quit doing interviews. He began distrusting record labels and even some people in his own circle. To the outside world, it seemed like he was simply becoming reclusive. But according to LB Sure's recent revelations, there was something much darker going on. What LB Sure hinted at during that live wasn't just burnout or artistic frustration, it was manipulation. He claimed that powerful figures within the industry didn't just exploit D'Angelo. They controlled him. And when he started pushing back, that's when everything began to fall apart. But before we break down exactly what LB Sure said about those controlling forces, we need to revisit the moment where his fame became his prison, the breaking point that pushed him over the edge. After Voodoo's explosive success, fans believed D'Angelo would dominate the R&B scene for years to come. But instead, he disappeared. No tours, no interviews, no new music. It was as if he'd vanished into thin air. And during those silent years, rumors began to swirl. Some claimed he was battling addiction. Others whispered he was locked in a toxic industry contract. And then came the quiet murmurs, the kind people were too afraid to say aloud about powerful figures who wanted Dangalo to fail simply because he refused to play their game. Those closest to him described that period as a war within his soul. Dangalo was torn between the artist he longed to be and the image others forced him to live. In interviews before stepping away, he'd openly said things like, "I don't want to be seen as an object. I want to be heard as a man." But those words didn't fit the narrative the industry was trying to push. Insiders later revealed Dangalo had started rejecting label executives' creative demands. He reportedly refused to participate in certain promotional campaigns and turned down offers that would have made him more commercial, but at the cost of his authenticity. And that defiance came with a heavy, silent price. Behind closed doors, powerful players in the business started cutting him off. Promoters backed away. Collaborations faded. Even people he trusted grew distant. Dangalo wasn't just slipping from the spotlight, he was being erased from it. Then came the crash, both literal and emotional. In the early 2000s, news broke that Dangalo had been involved in a serious car accident. Reports claimed he was under the influence at the time. But those who truly knew him insist that crash wasn't simply about recklessness, it was the physical manifestation of a man carrying unbearable pain. He was exhausted, isolated, surrounded by people who didn't have his best interests at heart. After that, Dangalo pulled away almost completely. He stopped showing up in public and cut off communication with many in the industry. The once vibrant artists who had reshaped R&B simply vanished, and for years, no one had any real answers until Al B. Sure spoke up. Because when Al B. Sure went live, he didn't sound like a gossip blogger or some distant commentator. He spoke like a man who had seen it all up close. He spoke about manipulation, control, and the chilling possibility that D'Angelo's silence wasn't a choice. According to Al B. Sure, what the world perceived as a disappearance may have been something far more sinister as silencing. He suggested that D'Angelo's struggles weren't just personal battles, but carefully planned moves by people who didn't want him to speak about what he had seen within the industry. Al B. Sure made statements that left viewers completely stunned, subtle hints about money, contracts, and even threats. He never mentioned names directly, but the meaning behind his words couldn't have been clearer. It sounded like Dangalo may have witnessed or discovered something he was never meant to know. And this is where the story takes a chilling turn. Al B. Sure didn't just talk about Dangalo as another casualty of fame. He implied there were forces deliberately keeping him silent, forces that had allegedly done the same thing to other artists who dared to question the system. So, what exactly did Al B. Sure reveal during that live stream that made both fans and industry insiders freeze? What hidden truth did he hint at that could explain D'Angelo's years of silence and sudden disappearance from the public eye? The night Al B. Sure went live, fans expected nothing more than a lighthearted, nostalgic session, maybe some old stories, a few laughs, and memories from back in the day. But within minutes, the entire mood shifted. His voice grew serious, his expression hardened, and the whole atmosphere became tense, heavy, and emotional. He began by saying, "People keep asking what happened to D, but they don't really want the answer. Because the truth will shake this whole thing." The viewers knew immediately that something major was about to drop. He wasn't just reminiscing anymore. He was warning. He started talking about the darker side of the music industry, about how certain artists were deliberately targeted when they refused to follow the rules. How the very thing that brought them fame could be twisted into a weapon to destroy them. And then came the moment that made everyone's heart stop. He said D'Angelo's name. According to Al B. Sure, Dangalo wasn't just dealing with inner demons. He was fighting against a system built to control artists through contracts, image manipulation, and forced silence. He said, when you don't follow their narrative, they make sure your career never sees daylight again. Fans in the live chat exploded with reactions. Shocked messages poured in. Some begged him to say more. Others warned him with lines like, "Don't say too much, and be careful." The energy in that moment was electric, uneasy, and chilling all at once. He continued, explaining how D'Angelo's refusal to conform His choice to create music with meaning instead of just music that sold made him a direct threat to those in power. All revealed that Dangelo had become increasingly vocal about wanting control, ownership, and freedom over his art. And according to him, that's when the walls began closing in. Then came the part that shook everyone watching. I'll Be Sure hinted that D'Angelo's isolation wasn't entirely by choice. He claimed there were people who made sure he stayed out of sight because he had started asking the kind of questions that made powerful executives nervous, questions about contracts, missing royalties, and hidden deals that seemed to benefit everyone but the artist himself. Al's voice grew more emotional as he said, "When a brother wants his freedom, they call him difficult. When he wants the truth, they call him unstable. And when he refuses to bow down, suddenly he disappears." In the years that followed D'Angelo's sudden disappearance from the spotlight, fans held on tightly to his music, clinging to every lyric and every visual in search of answers. What if he had been speaking through his art the entire time? What if those songs weren't just soul records, but coded cries for help hidden in plain sight? When listeners started revisiting his albums, something strange began to emerge. Patterns no one had truly noticed before. In tracks like Devil's Pie, D'Angelo sang about the cost of fame, the lure of money, and the corruption wrapped around success. He wasn't celebrating the industry, he was exposing it. The line, "Ain't no love in the heart of the city, it's all greed and lies," suddenly sounded less like poetic expression and more like a direct warning, even when he briefly resurfaced with Black Messiah. The tone felt different, darker, heavier, filled with references to betrayal, awakening, and spiritual warfare. It was as though D'Angelo had witnessed something that altered him forever, something he could only speak through his music. And for those who truly listened, the truth had always been right there. Hidden between the notes, some fans even pointed to the music videos, the stark visuals, the dim lighting, the repeated imagery of isolation. A man surrounded by chaos but trapped in his own mind. Was it a mirror of his inner battles or a silent message about control and confinement? What made I'll Be Sure's revelations so unsettling was how seamlessly they fit this puzzle. His words filled in the blanks. D'Angelo's music had been leaving for years. It was as if D'Angelo had been warning the world through melody, and I'll Be Sure had finally spoken the words those melodies couldn't say. But perhaps the most chilling part came after Al's livestream. Despite the pushback and attempts to silence him, he stood firm on one thing: D'Angelo's story wasn't finished. He hinted that others knew the truth too. Others who had seen that same darkness. Some of them, he claimed, were simply too afraid to speak. And that leads to the question that still echoes among fans to this day. Where is D'Angelo now? Some reports suggest he's still recording privately, far away from the spotlight, working on music he refuses to release until he feels safe. Others claim he's disconnected entirely from the industry, choosing peace over fame. And a few believe he's deliberately staying hidden, protecting himself from the same forces that once controlled his every move. Whatever the truth may be, one thing remains undeniable: the man who gave the world Timeless music paid an enormous price for his honesty. The story of D'Angelo and I'll Be Sure isn't just about fame, music, or controversy, it's about truth. And what happens when an artist dares to challenge the very system that created him? It reminds us that behind every hit record, every award, and every headline, there's a human being carrying burdens. The world never sees and maybe that's exactly why I'll Be Sure felt he couldn't stay silent anymore. Because silence protects the powerful, but truth, even when whispered, has the power to set the record straight. As fans, listeners, and lovers of real music, it becomes our responsibility to keep asking questions, to refuse easy answers, and to guard the legacies of artists who gave everything for their art. Because if I'll Be Sure was right, D'Angelo's story isn't a tragedy at all, it's a warning. Warning about the price of authenticity in a world built on illusion. A warning of what happens when an artist refuses to be controlled. And a warning of how quickly the industry can silence anyone who tries to break free. D'Angelo once said, "The truth don't need a stage. It just needs a soul to carry it." And maybe that's why, even in his absence, his message echoes louder than ever. That's where we'll leave it tonight. Before you go, let's keep this conversation alive. Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Do you believe I'll Be Sure truly exposed the real reason behind D'Angelo's disappearance? Or is there more to this story still hidden in the shadows? Make sure you like this video, share it with someone who remembers the real Dingalo, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories mainstream media won't tell. Because in the world of fame, truth doesn't vanish. It hides until someone brave enough brings it back into the light.